in learning more about our town's proposed transportation and infrastructure bond. My name is Jessica Marlowe. I'm the Public Works Director for the town. We have several other staff members on here. Susanna Struble, who's our CIP manager. David Fabiano is our town engineer. We have Casey Ambrose, who's one of our project managers in CIP. Leah Hubbard-Reinheimer, one of our deputy town managers. We have 3 of our task force members that you'll get to meet and learn a little bit more about when we go to the breakout rooms here later in the event. Jeff Hamilton, Alex Cardona, and Darren Roberge. And I would like to take a moment to introduce our Vice Mayor, Jan Koprowski, who's with us today as well. Thank you. And just so that everyone on the call knows, we are recording this presentation, just so we can be sure to capture any comments, questions, and feedback, and be able to focus on the meeting itself. I am going to start by giving a presentation to the group, and then we will be going into some breakout rooms that you'll be split into automatically based on when you registered for the event, what area you selected, and then we'll come back together at the end for kind of a wrap up and any follow-up questions and feedback. So Vice Mayor, would you like to say anything to start us off?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to attend this virtual session. This session is intended to provide information about a potential transportation and infrastructure bond for the town of Gilbert. And this bond package would present $515 million of projects that cover a vast variety of areas that will help maintain the town's roadway and street transportation network and infrastructure. You'll hear a lot more information from staff about the potential projects that will be proposed and that bond package tonight. We hope that you are open and honest with your comments or concerns tonight, and that you get a chance to interact and meet town staff, our Citizens Transportation Task Force members, and myself. So thank you again for taking the time tonight, and I'll pass it back to Jessica to kick it off with all the information about this bond package.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to do this one. Share. Okay. Is everyone seeing a title slide that says Proposed Transportation and Infrastructure Bond 2021? Perfect. Okay. So our agenda for the presentation is to share kind of why we're here, presenting this request and this proposed package to the community and to our council, and identify those needs that we've been working to identify over the last several years. I'll share a little bit more information about the task force and the members, as we mentioned, review an economic impact analysis that was completed on this bond package and the proposed projects that are included in it, and then share financial information. You know, what does this bond package mean to the residents and businesses in Gilbert? So really we're here because one of the main goals as town staff is for us to maintain Gilbert's long-term sustainability and quality of life. And we do that through maintaining our infrastructure and making sure that our residents are able to safely and efficiently travel throughout the community. However, one of the key kind of pain points that we hear from the residents is related to transportation. So in a national citizen survey that the town completes each year, public transportation and traffic flow are 2 of the 3 lowest scoring areas in terms of the satisfaction rate. I have actually a little poll. I meant to tell you all this. We have a few poll questions that are going to pop up on your screen throughout the presentation. So this is our first poll, and the question, there's 3 questions. And these 3 are all related, and it's since 2015, how do you think the public has seen the ease of travel in Gilbert change? How about the street repairs changing, and then traffic congestion changing? And we'll give everybody just a minute to answer those. Perfect. So our attendees here, the majority believe that the ease of travel has worsened. A few believe it stayed the same. They feel street repair has stayed the same. Some feel it's improved. Some feel it's worsened. It's a little more evenly split. Traffic congestion overwhelmingly has worsened since 2015. Well, you all are in line with what the National Citizen Survey results have shared as well, except for the street repair. And I actually tend to agree with you all. I feel that the street repairs, we've tried to do a good job in doing the street repair maintenance over the last 5 years, as we've really put a focus on that long-term sustainability. But overall, in the National Citizen Survey, over the last several surveys, all of those categories have declined. So we also get a lot of community feedback on social media related to traffic and transportation challenges. Particularly, there are sometimes very specific areas and projects pointed out, like when are you going to build the Ocotillo Bridge over the new park? When are you going to improve and widen your main road from Val Vista to Gilbert, which is actually under construction right now. So that one, we got check that one off the list. So just kind of general feedback on the state of traffic in the town, and I won't use that language on this recording. But so as part of that, you know, we see the contributing factors to that obviously being congestion. This depicts the morning and evening congestion levels in the town changing from 2010 through 2018, so over the last 10 years. And you can see more red is more congestion. And so we're seeing that kind of widespread all over the town. So as part of some outreach that we did recently for our transportation master plan, we had several stakeholder workshops. We had a month-long survey that was on our website to get feedback from residents, where we had thousands of responses to a variety of different questions. And those, I'm going to share a few of those here with you now. One of the questions that we asked was, what do you think the greatest transportation need in Gilbert is today? And 4 of those topics definitely stood out above the rest, and that was optimizing traffic signal operations, reducing travel congestion on roadways, improving safety for all users, and maintaining and improving roadway conditions. Additionally, 31% of people ranked safety as number 1, and 20% of people ranked reducing congestion as number 1. So we also asked people, in the future, how do you see Gilbert's transportation network? And 67% of people said ease of traveling by car will get worse. And whereas 21% saw Gilbert as a walkable town getting better, which is great, because we really do have a focus on that multimodal connectivity throughout the community. We also asked them, in 20 years, what do you think our greatest transportation challenge will be? And 59% of people ranked increased congestion as number 1. We also had feedback on addressing technology improvements or addressing technology and improving safety. So overall, we asked people, what transportation investments should Gilbert focus on? And 67% of people ranked improving roadway conditions as number 1. And improving roadway conditions included safety, pavement condition, and congestion. And so those are the types of topics and things that we're really trying to address with the projects that are being proposed in this bond. We also get a lot of feedback from residents on our 311 app. We've had almost 2,000 requests related to traffic and transportation since the 311 app started being used in 2017. And this is just really to demonstrate that it's town-wide. There's not a particular area that the concerns or feedback we're getting is concentrated in. It's really spread across the entire town. And we really like using this picture because people are passionate about transportation in Gilbert, and we thought it was great that somebody made a bumper sticker asking for more right-hand turn lanes, because there's really not a whole lot more frustrating than sitting at a light waiting to turn right and the person in front of you doesn't want to turn. So it was just a fun photo to share. One of the things we're also focused on when we talk about our transportation network is our City of the Future initiative. So we look at a strong economy, prosperous community, and exceptional built environment as sort of the pillars of that City of the Future. And exceptional built environment is pretty, that's the foundation that we're talking about here when we talk about our transportation network and how that contributes to the prosperous community and the strong economy, and continued growth and support of economic, development and growth and sustainability in the town. But we also talk about breaking the cycle of kind of that downturn of the city, where we make sure that we have the ability to maintain our existing infrastructure into the future, to keep it clean and vibrant. So we have another polling question that's going to come up now. And the question is, what do you think Gilbert's population will be in 2030? Give everybody just a minute to answer that. Okay, so the majority of people think there will be 355,000, and we had some that said 320,000 and one person that said 295,000. Based on our current projections, the single person that said 295,000 had the correct answer. But overall, we know the population is growing. And since 2007, when the town had its last transportation bond election, our population has grown by 44%. And by 2030, it's expected to increase by 63% to a total of about 294. Now, build out population for the town is currently projected to be about 320 to 330,000 people. So we're getting really close to build out when we start looking at that 2030 horizon. Although with the way everything is growing right now, maybe it will happen faster. So that obviously population growth is contributing to some of the transportation congestion and things that we're trying to get ahead of so that it doesn't get worse before it gets better. We have another polling question for you. And this one is, what cities in the Valley have their own local transportation funding source in the form of a transportation sales tax? And you can pick as many as you want.
It's kind of interesting to answer your question.
Yes.
Well, they go through, they have a presentation and they have a polling question. There's like 22 people on this call.
Oh.
The number of, and it's interesting, the vice mayor is an Asian female.
Okay, so the results of the poll, the majority of people selected all of the above in terms of cities that have a dedicated transportation sales tax for transportation related funding. And you are correct. So cities from Peoria to Glendale to Scottsdale, Tempe and Mesa, they all have dedicated sales taxes for transportation funding, generating anywhere from $20 to $40 million a year in revenue for that purpose. One of the things to note is that all of these cities also have had transportation bond elections in the last 10 years to supplement that sales tax revenue, including just this past election in November. Mesa and Tempe both had successful transportation bond elections on their ballot. And nationally, transportation was also very popular topic in November this past year. 18 different states had ballot questions related to transportation, and 94% of those questions passed, generating $14 billion in transportation related funding. And I think this is our last polling question, maybe. Has Gilbert previously used bonds to fund transportation related projects? Yes or no? All right, everybody said yes, and everybody is right. So between 2001 and 2007, Gilbert actually had 4 different transportation ballot bond questions that all were successful in passing, that generated or approved about $363 million worth of transportation funding, which adjusted to today's dollars is about $490 million worth of capital investment. However, you'll notice the last question that was approved was in 2007. So it's been 14 years since we have requested a ballot issue for additional transportation funding. And we really are using those last dollars on some current projects we have going on that I'll share a little bit more about in a moment. And which is why we're here sharing this information with you and asking our council to support this bond going to the voters in the fall. And really it's because of, you know, the growth that we've seen in Gilbert. Since that time period, we've added over 300 centerline miles of roadway to the community. We've added 80,000 in population, and we've invested almost $500 million in capital projects for our streets department. So some of the projects that we've completed with those prior bond funds, those last 2 issuances specifically, they were kind of all over town. You can see quite a few in the northwest corner of town that were sort of redevelopment related. And then quite a few projects in like the 202 corridor, and then down in the southern part of town where we're continuing to see a lot of growth. Some of those projects that we've completed recently are the Hearn Avenue project in the Heritage District that provides access to the parking garage. Upgrades to the Val Vista and Baseline intersection, and then also the Gilbert and Guadalupe intersection. Those were all funded by bond funds in the last like 5 or so years. And then we have several currently active construction projects all over town that are using bond funds to be completed as well. And that includes Val Vista Drive from Appleby to Riggs, which is improving that from a single lane in each direction to full arterial standards of 3 lanes in each direction. Lindsay Road from Pecos to Germain, Germain Road from Gilbert to Val Vista, the Lindsay 202 interchange. That's one that actually in 2007, when those bond funds were authorized, wasn't a project. It wasn't something that we considered building at that time. But because of the way the bond funding is structured, we had the opportunity to partner with ADOT and many others to build that interchange and be able to use bond funds to complete it. And then lastly, Val Vista Drive reconstruction from Baseline to Guadalupe. So all those active construction projects are being partially funded by the remaining bonds that we have available to us. Oh, we have one more polling question. So this question is, what percentage of current transportation projects are funded by bonds? Okay, it was pretty neck and neck between 33% and 100%. And the 33%ers are actually correct. We have currently in our CIP, in our capital improvement program, 34 different street related projects totaling $121 million. And about 23% of those projects are funded, or 23% of them are funded by those 2007 general obligation bonds. The other large funding source that we have for street related projects right now are for our MAG funds, which are Maricopa Association of Government. And that's a half-cent sales tax, the Proposition 400, that is delegated or designated out to different cities. So that's something that's also coming to an end, and we are using the funding that we have left in that as well. And they are contemplating an extension of that sales tax, but there hasn't been, that would have to go to voters as well. So there's no guarantee that that funding would be available. And without that funding, essentially 2/3 of the funding for all of our streets projects goes away. And without those funding sources, we don't have the ability to continue with these transportation related projects. Because, for example, a road SDF, that's a large funding source that's left in this pie, but it only pays for a portion of a project. So it may only pay for 15 or 20% of a project, and you still have to have a funding source to pay for the remainder of the project, which is where the bonds and the MAG funds come into play. So without the MAG funds in the future, looking forward, our funding sources for transportation projects looks very different. We're relying much more heavily on those bond funds because it's the only source that we can't rely on the MAG funds being available to us without knowing if that's going to be extended and how much of it would even come to Gilbert. So we have a lot of other just very small funding sources that can supplement those bond expenditures, but primarily we would be looking for bonds to fund our transportation projects in the future. I want to talk a little bit more now about our transportation task force that was created, and you'll get to meet some of those members once we go to the breakout rooms. But this task force was formed by our council in December of 2019, and the town was broken into 9 different areas, and a representative from each area was appointed to the task force. And there was a open application process, and those applications were reviewed, and then those members were selected by our council. And we've met with them many times since 2019 when they formed, to first educate them on some of the workings of government and how we fund the projects, how we develop our capital improvement plan, how we prioritize projects, and then get input from them on what they saw as transportation challenges in their particular areas that they live, as well as just townwide, because there's definitely some more townwide challenges that we wanted to make sure to address. And you'll get to hear more about the individuals and kind of some of the information that they shared with us when we go to the breakout rooms as well. But basically, we collected all of the information and the input from our task force members on those challenges that they saw in their communities and mapped them out. And then we tried to line them up with projects that we had already identified as needing to be addressed across the community. And we found there was a lot of overlap. The majority of the pain points, congestion around the Santan Mall, the Heritage District, bike safety and multimodal things, we had a lot of those projects kind of identified and developed. There were some gaps that are not part of this bond proposal, which include improvements around Gateway Airport for multimodal connectivity, some automated enforcement technology, grade separated rail crossings throughout town, and then utilizing the trail network as a multimodal connectivity option. We do have included trail safety crossings at the different roadways, but trail improvements as part of the network would be part of like a trail or a park related project. And then we were also able to make some modifications to some of the projects that we had already identified to incorporate feedback as well. When you talk about safety and congestion, particularly around schools, looking at commuter rail possibilities, and then Heritage District and just general pedestrian and multimodal and connection to safe routes, different trail connectivity to enhance that non-vehicular travel mode of operation. Some feedback we got from our task force throughout the process was that the staff had done a good job in researching and gathering data in terms of identifying the needs across the town and then proposing solutions to address those needs. And that we had prepared a comprehensive package that really addressed the needs identified by the task force throughout this process. And one of the things that they really highlighted and focused is that the improvements that we're proposing will have impact on the community for generations. We're, not only working to address current challenges with congestion, but also trying to get ahead of that growth. So again, so it doesn't get worse before it gets better. There was a lot of engagement with the residents throughout this process, from surveys and outreach, including the task force. And with the task force itself, we had a very diverse and wealth of knowledge and experience among that group, from 50 years in the aviation industry to technology related, marketing, and construction, engineering, you name it. So we really tried to tap into that knowledge and experience that task force had to develop this bond package to be as comprehensive as possible. So the outcome of the Transportation Task Force process was a recommendation that was made to our town council in February this year at our financial retreat. I think my PowerPoint just restarted. Okay, are you seeing a slide that says Transportation Task Force recommendation?
Yes.
Okay, so the outcome of the task force process was a recommendation from the task force to our town council that was shared with them at the financial retreat in February of this year. There were actually two different recommendations made. Originally, the task force had made a recommendation in April of 2020 that given the uncertain climate related to COVID and the uncertain economic situation that was happening at that time, we originally intended to request this bond election in November of 2020, and the decision was made to delay that to this year. And so the task force recommendation was to approve calling for a transportation general obligation election in the amount of $515 million for the purpose of transportation projects that provide safety, congestion management, reconstructions, multimodal enhancements, transportation technology enhancements, and redevelopment plan implementation improvements to happen this fall, November of 2021. And to get into a little bit more detail on kind of what that encompasses, there are different categories that the projects fall into, and that's to address safety and congestion, reconstruction of existing infrastructure, those multimodal investments, transportation technology investments, and redevelopment. So I'll share a few examples of the types of projects that will be included in that, and then we'll get to hear a little bit more about projects in your specific areas when we go into the breakout rooms. So on the safety and congestion side, we look at high crash intersections to be able to improve safety. We look at intersections that have failing levels of service, which means there's too many cars trying to go through there, and there's long delays at those intersections. And what can we do to improve those intersections? The Ocotillo Bridge is one where it will provide additional connectivity across the south portion of town, as well as improve public safety response times in certain portions of town that are currently cut off by that East Maricopa floodway. Another category of improvements here are improvements at the trail crossings. As I mentioned, we had a trail crossing safety study that was done that prioritized the highly utilized trail crossings and made recommendations on improvements to signalize some of those to improve the safety of those crossings in those areas. On the reconstruction side, we have a few major reconstructions as part of this, including Guadalupe Road from Arizona Avenue to McQueen, as well as reconstruction of the Val Vista Lakes. On the multimodal investment side, we have a project that specifically addresses safe routes enhancements for bike head and other multimodal options that look at opportunities for potentially separated or buffered bike lanes, or utilizing other off-street bike facilities in order to improve the safety of that transportation method. We also have transportation-related technology projects, which include completion of the town's fiber optic network in our arterial streets that would allow us to connect all of our traffic signals to the fiber optic network and improve control and response time for that, as well as upgrading the video detection at the intersections to better prepare for future advances in traffic control technology. One question that always comes up is related to those cameras. They are for video detection and monitoring only. There's no recording of any of that information that happens. We have gotten requests for that to happen. It's not something that we currently do. And then the final category is redevelopment, and that is transportation-related projects that came out of the redevelopment plan in the Heritage District. And one of those key projects that we're looking at is the Vaughan Ventilator, which would provide a secondary access into and out of the Heritage District in order to relieve some traffic and improve the pedestrian access along Gilbert Road so that people had another sort of back way out of the Heritage District. So as part of this entire package development, we also had an economic impact analysis completed by a consultant that typically does these types of studies for our economic development group when they're evaluating businesses and things that are coming into the community. Because what we wanted to see with respect to this bond package was look at mobility related objectives in terms of reducing congestion and travel time and sort of the time value of the time saved. Access related objectives in terms of improving local business access and multimodal connectivity, and just those overall quality of life objectives, improving safety, reconstruction of our existing infrastructure, and then providing more multimodal choices for bike and pedestrian access. We also looked at both the short-term construction impacts of just the projects themselves being built, the long-term value of reduced delays at intersections, and then we looked at development impacts for two specific case study projects and what impact the improvement of those facilities would have on the economic development in the area. What this study found was that for every $1 million spent on transportation infrastructure, it would support 9 jobs and $485,000 in labor income in Gilbert. And that's just, over the course of the building of all of the different projects, which would likely be completed. They would all be started within a 5-year period and likely be completed within a 10-year window. We also looked at the long-term qualitative impacts when it came to just the efficiency, improving the efficiency of transportation networks and the benefits to the residents, less time spent in traffic, more reliable travel times, and just improving the overall quality of life for those that are traveling through Gilbert, as well as benefits to businesses when we talk about access to a larger base of workers and customers and really bringing in those businesses that have those jobs that make people want to develop and live and work in Gilbert. What we found there was that this is a list of 10 intersections that are proposed in this bond, but really it could be any 10 intersections that as the priorities or the growth patterns change over time, if the traffic patterns change and a different intersection has a higher level of traffic and we want to work on that one instead. But what we found was that with these 10 intersections being completed, it equates to about 43,000 person hours of time per year saved from people traveling those corridors across those, just in those 10 locations, which when you think about 43,000 hours a year, just the value of people's time, how much that's saving there. We also looked at 2 different specific projects. One was the intersection improvements at Elliott and McQueen. And then we also looked at power road improvements from Guadalupe to the Santan Freeway. What we wanted to do was look at the impact on vacant land within half a mile and look at the future development by land use, looking at residential and non-residential square footage and how that would affect population, job creation, and overall sales tax impacts to the town as well. At the Elliott and McQueen intersection, I won't go over this in a lot of detail, but basically that is a hot area right now for development. And actually, I was just presenting at the Chamber of Commerce right before this, and the presentation that went right before me was talking about development that is being proposed on the northwest corner of Elliott and McQueen. So it was a very timely conversation. But looking at improving the existing congestion in that area and being able to support additional development at that corner, that intersection is a high priority in this bond package. We also looked at the Power Road corridor, which is an interesting corridor because it's a boundary street with the city of Mesa. So we only looked at the Gilbert side of Power, and the impact there and the economic benefits to that particular project. Including supporting a little bit of multifamily, but the way it's currently zoned, it'd be primarily retail, office space, business park, and some light industrial, which we could support up to 12,000 jobs and about 3,700 residents. So the job creation here is what we're looking at, being able to bring more jobs to the community. And then we had them look at, as a result of the additional retail and office, the sales tax impact to the town, and it would generate additional sales tax revenue for the town that would allow us to continue to support and provide those services to the community, like public safety and our development services and things in that category. So overall, the economic impact of this entire bond package would create over 3,500 jobs during construction, reduce travel time delays to the tune of 43,000 person hours per year, which when you calculate it out on a person's time worth is about $39 million in annual productivity gains from people just saving time in their travel. It could develop potentially 6 million or so new square feet of retail and office space that would support up to 13,000 jobs. And then every $1 million of spend on transportation infrastructure would support nine jobs and $485,000 in labor income. So the economic impacts to these types of projects are really substantial. So basically, what it means to the average resident and business in Gilbert, the financial impact of what this bond package is. Historically, the town has had a secondary property tax, and that rate 10 years ago was $1.15 per $1,000 of assessed value on your home. And it over the last 10 years has been reduced down to 99 cents per $1,000 of assessed value. And this proposed bond package could be funded within that 99-cent tax rate. It would not need to increase the tax rate in order to pay back these bonds. And that's something that, a secondary property tax, it can only be used to pay back bonds that are approved by the voters. So this for us was something we really wanted to look at and make sure that it could be funded within that existing 99-cent rate, and it would not need to increase the rate in order to support it. So for us, we have tonight we're having this virtual open house to share information with the community, and thank you all again for participating. We have 2 more in-person open houses where we'll also share this information and then have an opportunity to interact, and we'll have some additional mapping and things, which you'll get to see a lot of that in the breakout rooms in just a moment. We will be asking our council to vote on this at the June 1st council meeting. And if they do vote to approve it or to send it to the voters, then that election would happen November 2nd. And that is the content that I have to share right now. We do have time set aside now to break into smaller groups and have some more conversation with our task force members, learn a little bit more about potential projects in your areas of interest, and then for you to ask questions either on the presentation that was just shared or more questions, specific to your area in that breakout group. Big group, everybody. Hopefully we all got to get some additional information and have some good questions and conversations in the breakout groups. I will go ahead and start. We were just going to take a couple minutes to recap themes or feedback. We just had a couple of questions that came up in our group. One was whether or not there were any light rail related projects in the proposed bond. And the answer to that was no. Light rail is not something that that's being considered as part of this bond question, because I don't believe there is a plan for light rail to extend into Gilbert at this time. And then the other question was related to taxes. And the question was, would it raise taxes? And so just wanted to clarify that point, that it will not raise the tax rate. The amount of tax you pay is based on the value of your home. So if your home value goes up, it's based on the assessor's value that we get from them every year. So the tax rate will stay at 99 cents, but the dollar amount of the tax you pay is dependent on the value of your home. So those were the questions we got in group 2. David, do you want to share feedback from group 3, David or Leah?
Sure, thank you, Jessica. In group 3, we talked about the several of the projects that Jeff shared and highlighted, and especially sort of his experiences on a day-to-day basis with a couple of those that were called out, and of recent personal experience where his daughter was involved in an accident at one of the locations where we're looking to try to improve and create a better situation there. There was a couple of questions we're asking about public transportation. And was there any public transportation included in this? And the answer to that was that no, there is not public transportation. That's really an operational kind of an activity, where this is more of and Leah, you said it best, a bricks and mortar is what this is for, to help us build the facilities that public transportation would operate across. And improvements that we would want to make sure we're capturing is bus pullouts when they're appropriate, so that we can keep better, safer operations along the facilities. And so those are the kinds of questions that we had. And we also had a birthday that we're celebrating. Richard, congratulations. Happy birthday. Thank you for the time, Jessica.
Thank you, David. Do we want a recap from Susanna or
Absolutely.
Vice Mayor?
Vice Mayor, you're welcome to take that, or I can, either way.
I'll let you take it, Susanna. Thanks.
All right, very good. Thank you. So what the questions we got were very similar to what we just heard here. You know, there was a question about the public transportation or the transit, and with some of the aging population, you know, what was happening there. Obviously, this bond is not necessarily addressing that, other than, as David said, bus pullouts, enhancement to some of those types of things are included, more infrastructure related. But there is a transit study going on right now in alignment with the transportation master plan. So, you know, be looking. There may be some additional items that will be coming from there. There was also a question about the bond, and I think again that was the rate and how that is working to fund that. That was addressed. A question as well as the ties up on US 60 and the interchanges there. Are there any improvements that are scheduled for that? Those interchanges are really MESA's responsibility. We do not have any idea of at this point in time whether there are any enhancements planned, but we did offer to basically check in and get back with the individual that asked on that. And then I think last but not least was, we're seeing the Heritage District continuing to develop, and again, highlight there, we're continuing to monitor the transportation in that area, continuing to study it, address it from a parking perspective, as well as how the intersections work, how some multimodal can be tied into that as well. And some of that will be included as a part of this proposed bond.
And we had one other question regarding how this bond prepares the town of Gilbert for autonomous and connected vehicles. And so we discussed some of the technology improvements related to the fiber communications that would help prepare the town for that.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Very important question that one was.
Yes, for sure. That's the technology side of things, is really putting in that backbone of infrastructure so that we're able to adapt to that changing technology, changing world of the connected vehicles. Okay, so that was all that we had in terms of a recap from the different breakout rooms. I don't know if there are any last minute questions that have come up that you want to ask or again put in the chat, or if there are questions that you think of and want to ask after the fact. We do have a web page for our proposed transportation and infrastructure bond, and we do have the ability to take questions and feedback from anybody that has that. So we can direct you to that as well, and it's I can put the link in the chat actually to that site. And other than that, I can turn it back over to the Vice Mayor to wrap up for the evening. And thank everyone again very much for your interest and participation tonight.
Yes, certainly. I'll just reiterate that we appreciate your interest in this very much, and hopefully we answered the questions that you had. And if you have any more, feel free to reach out to staff or myself with any further questions. Hopefully this was informative. If you could please create awareness or just let anyone else in the town know that this may be a potential bond coming up. I think that it's important that we let the voters decide if it does go to voting. Just to reiterate some of the key points is that this is a bond package based on a lot of planning and research, and you saw all that information today. It covers projects throughout the town in a multitude of areas, and we had a lot of questions about the tax rate, and that the secondary property tax is what funds the general obligation bonds based on what voters decide, and that what is being proposed would remain within that existing 99 cents tax rate. Thank you again so much. Have a wonderful evening, and appreciate all of your attention this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.